really like folks to take away from this particular video is, you may have noticed, I don't own a table saw. I really do enjoy this tool. I don't have a table saw. And it is my table saw. I still do not own a table saw. Pretty much ideal for table saws, and I don't have one. That's just filming in a garage and not having a table saw. Well, that's the main part of my cut and done, and again, no table saw needed. They're now exactly the same size, which is what I wanted. Fantastic, who needs a table saw? Now obviously, the jointed thickness of the table saw, all of those things are going to be handy, and if you have them, good luck to you. But I don't currently, so this is the way I do it. G'day fixers, this is James from Fixit Fingers, and I do have a table saw. After 4 and a bit years of woodworking, there is finally a table saw in the Fixit Fingers workshop. This is the CTS from Carbotech, 10-inch, very compact table saw, which is of course a SawStop and won't mean I have to fix these fingers anytime soon. I hope. Let's take a look. G'day guys, well here we are, and the lovely people at Carbotech in Sydney have been nice enough to let me film in the showroom. And if you are in Sydney, you haven't been down here, why the bloody hell not? Get in, I guarantee you, you'll walk away with a lighter wallet. Today, this is not my exact saw, it's in the garage, but the CTS. The reason that I finally, after nearly 5 years of woodworking, decided to pick up a table saw, and beside it is the reason that I haven't had a table saw for that period. Until this came out about a month or two ago, the job site JS saw from SawStop, and I've always wanted a SawStop, was the smallest one on offer. That of course has that technology which will not cut off your fingers. But as you can see, simply side by side, while it's a pretty small saw, this is littler. And for me, that's a good thing. Because, as you probably well know, I have a one-car garage with a car in it. And even this rather compact job site saw comes in at 80 centimeters by at least 70 centimeters. So that was just too big to be able to get my car in comfortably. The new one is under 60 by 64 centimeters. I'll do the imperial conversion on screen for you. And that is just enough that I'm going to be able to put this against the wall in the garage and still every day be able to get the car in and out. And with more people working in small spaces, I can see this particular model of SawStop becoming very popular. And there's another great thing about it too, the price. In the States, I believe this is under $1,000 US, and here in Australia it's just over 1,500. One of the leading brands of table saw, the little DeWalt 10-inch that a lot of hobbyist makers use, I believe it's coming in at nearly 1,200 Australian dollars. So for $300 extra, it's the same power, it's a tiny bit smaller, yes, but it doesn't cut your fingers off. And for the size and that safety reason is why I've held off on buying the heart of the workshop until this model of saw has come out. So look, the JS is a great machine, but you look at the footprint of it, even on this mobile stand down here, it's taking up a lot of real estate, which I just did not have. So happy days when I saw this thing come out, because it's coming home with me, and finally the Fixit Fingers workshop will have a bloody table saw. And while we're here, we might as well look at the proper SawStop. So these are the contractor saws. They're the big boys that you would want if you had the space, and they're just really nice looking machines. Look at this beast of a thing. Sliding table. I think Pass makes that's one of these. That's just lovely. Not going to play with that too much, but I'm very happy with my little one. Oh, here we go. Check this out. So I'm not going to do this demonstration. Dave Stanton, I'll link to the video where he did the hot dog demonstration.
All right, here we go. Are you ready? Here we go. I'm going to bring it over to you to see the mark that is on there. Can you see any mark at all? Zip. Dada. Okay, time to give it to the puppies.
This is what happens with your SawStop. So this is a solid aluminium block, and you can see it's got the 10-inch blade in here. So this one, I'm guessing, has been set off on purpose, and look at that. This thing fires up on that spring if it gets any contact with human skin, and you end up looking like that. 5 milliseconds, that will drop completely below the table and stop spinning because it's been embedded straight in there. And the other really cool thing is, if it's a genuine finger save, then SawStop replace this cartridge, not your blade, but they replace this cartridge for free. And that'll save you some dollary dues as well. But I mean, here you go, looking at $3,000, so double the price of my little one. So they're not cheap table saws, but you know, your Lagunas without the SawStop technology, don't get me wrong, ooh, sale. These are great machines too, and these are higher end. The Carbotech branded saws are even less. So here you go, we got one over here, 2005. So you can get, you know, your standard old table saw, and this is a very, very nice saw. I know several people who have this standard saw, and it is, well, there you go, the same price as the job site saw, which I've pinched and put on the other side of the shop. So for $1,500 to get a SawStop, it's a no-brainer for me. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, look at this. That ain't going away anytime soon. All loaded up. There's a lot more boxes that I've ended up with than I thought I was going to. But now it's time to get this load home, set her up, and hope it actually does fit. Pretty sure it will. Let's go.
Back home, and I also picked up the optional stand that comes along with the saw, just temporary. I'm going to build it into a bench eventually. This is a one-man lift. Now that is heavy, that's just over 30 kilograms, but the whole point is I could pick that up easily enough by myself, and you might notice a couple of extra boxes which contain my new dust extractor. I'll do a separate video on that later. Now, just to be explicitly clear, Carbotech and I have worked together for a number of years, so when I contacted them expressing my pre-order interest, we got chatting and they have decided to very generously supply me with the table saw at no cost and the optional stand. It's the perfect fit for my workshop, and hopefully I can demonstrate for them how it might be the perfect fit for yours too. Let's take a close look at what you get in the box. I'm not a massive fan of unboxing, but I wanted to see just how quickly and easily this thing went together, because I have seen other table saw videos, like big proper table saws, and they can take hours and hours and hours. I was expecting this to be simple, but well, you'll see. Now, one thing I wasn't quite expecting with the stand is to have to do this. I did find that one of the little bolts did not quite fit, but this is actually real time. That is all the filing I did. Just needed to knock down a little bit of the aluminium to make the bolt fit into its lock hole. Took a couple of seconds, but a little bit disappointing, I suppose. SawStop is not just a safe table saw, it's also a relatively high-end table saw. And, you know, just small construction things like that. They do happen, but I wasn't honestly expecting that from a SawStop product. Right, back on track. And that's it. Now, I'm usually one for reading manuals and stuff. I have purposely done what everyone usually does and figuring this out as I go along. It appears that those are the clips that will hold the table saw to the stand. And out of the box, that's it. There's one thing in the box, the saw. Nothing else. 31 kilo big He-Man lift. Plop it down. Yep, those are the locks indeed.
And I think that is literally it. It took longer to set up the stand. There is nothing. Riving knife is already in there. Blade is already in there. Storage, everything. Mitre gauge. Shield. That's set up. I cannot believe that. It took about 10 minutes to set up the base, and most of that was because I had to file out that one hole, and out of the box, you have a working saw. I don't know if that's normal, but I am gobsmacked. There is nothing to set up. Where's the fence?
Hang on. No, the fence is already on as well. And it's not super light. Like, this is not really easy. You've got to be careful moving it. But it's a one-man lift. That is the accessories. There, that is super cool. These are just awesome. Now, where is it? I actually bought a spare brake to go with it. Which looks like that. And this will store in here as well. Done. How nicely does that fit? All the bits and bobs. Alright, I'm actually going to read how to get the fence out, but we're set up. 15 bloody minutes. Gorgeous. Except for cleaning up the mess.
Okay, and that is not an exaggeration. You could cut straight away in this current format, but I wanted to, like you should with any new tool, make sure it's tuned up. Here are a few little things that I needed to do. The first one being leveling the zero clearance insert plate. It was already pretty good, but just in a couple of spots, I needed to grab the onboard Allen key, give them a few quarter turns until it was nice and flush with the aluminium top. And I will point this out, it is an aluminium top, so mag switches and stuff ain't gonna work. And I didn't need to resort to the manual, I just quickly figured out that the fence saws underneath for easy transport, and then has two separate positions which you can hook it onto. And it is super quick. It locks down at both ends. It's the rack and pinion style. The fine adjustment knob is very smooth, and you give it a bit of a bash, push it in, and that will lock, and there is no play in that. There is a way to adjust the fence, but I found that mine was perfectly parallel to the Mitre slot and to the blade straight out of the box. This is a nifty little feature. Now obviously contact with metal will trigger off your SawStop's emergency brake. Your fence is aluminium. So there are these little plastic guides in there, which unless you press them in to override them, will stop your blade from getting too close to that fence. When you do press them in, you can come in contact, so be aware of that, or it's going to become very expensive very quickly. The two different gauges on the built-in ruler are for the two separate fence positions, and that's a very smooth operation. Even at full extension, when you press down on the fence, there is almost no play whatsoever. Yeah, it bounces up a little bit, but if your fence is moving upwards during a cut, you're doing something wrong. It also has this flip-out L-style fence, which has two height positions. This first one is, of course, to provide support when you are at full extension. However, it can also be raised up to the table's height and act as a low fence for when you're cutting very thin materials. Breaking out the tape measure and confirming with the scale on the actual saw, and it looks like 625mm is your maximum width of cut. In other words, you can rip a full sheet of goods straight down the guts in half. Right, let's look at the riving knife situation, and it is that quick. It literally takes seconds. One little toolless change red lever in there, flick it up, pull off the knife, and this is how you install the additional pawls and blade guard. I'm going to be honest, like vast majority of people, I am probably not going to use this, but should I decide to, it only takes mere moments to switch over from your riving knife to the full blade guard setup. There's no dust extraction, as this is a job site saw, effectively. I don't think they're terribly worried about that. But in a matter of moments, you can jump between the two. That is so easy. Now let's get to the elephant in the room. If you take a look at that arbor, you'll notice there is no space there. None. Meaning that one of the big trade-offs perhaps you have to consider when purchasing the CTS is that it will not take a dado stack. Basically the force the dado brake would shove onto this light machine would be enormous. However, back in the Carbotech store, I actually filmed the job site saw, and you will see it is nice and long there and will take the dado stack. So if you want a compact-ish saw, then the JS will take a dado stack for you. This is real time. This is the blade raise. I think I measured it in at about 7 or 8 seconds. Full depth of cut is basically 80mm. or 3 1/4 in the old money. And that is me figuring out how to tilt the blade. Firstly, it's very intuitive. And secondly, it goes from 0 to 45 in under a second. It also has that really cool little micro. I didn't measure how quick it is, but it is a fairly small adjustment. So you could just throw it backwards and forwards and then use that micro guide to lock in your perfect angle. We'll check that in just a second. To lock the blade at said angle, you simply push that micro adjuster in, and to unlock it, just pull it back towards you. As I said, I've never touched a table saw before. I was literally filming and working out how these controls operate all in the one motion. It was super, super easy. Speaking of adjust, Carbotech were also nice enough to give me this digital blade mitre measurer thingy, and popping it on, the blade was pretty close, just with that coarse throw motion. If you're doing construction work, that's not bad. However, it is a little bit out, so at 90 degrees I want that to be a very true 90, and I finally succumbed and broke out the manual to learn how to adjust this. I'll take you through the steps as I think it is kind of important. So when I put my square up against the blade, we'll be able to see there is in fact a very small gap down there at the bottom. So what you need to do is loosen these 2 screws at either end of the trunnion, and then that central screw with the onboard Allen key allows a super easy and micro adjustment. Look at that, tick, 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 until you get to 90. Absolutely perfect in the 0 lock position. Tighten up the outside screws, and you're good to go. Just double check, it does flick back to 0. Oh, but you may also need to, of course, get the pointer. This is really simple. It's just got 1 screw. Loosen that up, adjust it till it's pointing to what you think is 0. And your visual guide is back in play. You should only need to do this once. I'm guessing it probably will, over time, knock itself out, but it's easy enough to check, and that digital angle finder made it super easy. Once it's all tuned up, we can flick backwards and forwards very easily. And again, that's just a coarse throw, and you can see that it went to 44.9 degrees. Tiny tweak on the micro bevel adjuster, and it puts it back in there. So look, this is a construction grade saw. It does not go, when you throw it from 90 to 0, back perfectly every time. It's close. It seems to be under half a degree, but it's not perfect. That little switch next to the power button is the safety override. Effectively, if you want to cut wet wood, aluminium, something that would usually set your automatic brake off, you can put it into override mode. I'm not going to go too much into that today. That flashing red light occurs when it is powering up. There's a whole picture on the side. In fact, both sides of the machine have excellent instructions for changing the brake, changing the blade, and what all the different combinations of blinking lights mean. The important thing is, that's ready to go. Let's fire her up. Yeah, there is no soft start on this. It goes from 0 to hero instantly. It also seemed to me quite loud, so I decided to do a few tests so as not to annoy my poor neighbours. I broke out a number of my most used tools, the circular saw, the router, my big Mitre saw, which I think proved to be the slightly loudest, coming in at about 80 decibels. I was glad to see my vacuum only came in at 70, which is slightly quieter than I thought it was. And here is the saw. It's basically indistinguishable from the circular saw, so it's no louder than my existing power tools, which for my neighbours is a great thing. Moment of truth. Let us cut my first ever piece of timber on a table saw. Now, I'm going through all the motions here, not only to show what I was thinking, but also because I have never done this before. This is my first cut, and I was kind of nervous, as I think I repeat 3 or 4 times in the upcoming audio. Very fortunately, my old little Ryobi cutting workbench was the perfect height to be the outfeed table for this saw. Let's see how it all went for me.
That was just so smooth. The noise didn't go up at all, and I couldn't even tell when the wood had entered the blade. It's a brand new blade, literally super duper sharp, but there was no resistance, absolutely none, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting to have to, push it a little bit to get through. Well, that's it. That's my table saw cherry popped. I literally can never do that again. It's my first push through a table saw. And it probably looked terrible as I was quietly shitting bricks. But that's it. It's done. Happy. Can use it. Carefully.
And of course there is a 2 1/4 inch dust port underneath the machine there, which I'm gonna have to get hooked up to my new extractor pretty soon. Just out of interest, I haven't changed this. That was set there at 84mm on the dial, and measuring my cut, it was 83.7. That's pretty damn good. Unplanned, but right here at the end I decided to memorialise my first cut and put a reminder up in the workshop of this momentous day. Things will never be the same again in the Fixit Fingers workshop, as this little SawStop will be a feature, no doubt, of all of my upcoming projects. I hope you enjoyed this first look and expect to see a lot more of it coming up soon. Thanks again to Carbotech, and thanks for everyone watching. Catch you soon.